Hello, everybody. I'm Alex.
I'm Cody.
We're here with Slow Your Roll, and we've got another list for you. This one's going to be about traps and why it's really important to have good traps.
So traps are obviously a very important part of D&D, and a lot of people don't look at it this way, but really it's an important part of the pillar of exploration in D&D. That being said, there's a lot of ways to do it wrong, and you might even accidentally do it wrong just by trying not to have any preference at all. So we're going to help you find the ways you're possibly doing it wrong or could do it better. And we're even going to use Baldur's Gate 3, that freaking fantastic new game, as a good example of how traps can look one way in one situation and another and be good or bad either way. To be more specific, traps have been a core part of D&D since its inception. Traps make any dungeon that you're delving completely unpredictable, not knowing what to expect, while at the same time possibly providing crucial information for what might linger in the dungeon. These traps can be anything from the classic pitfalls that you just don't notice because they're covered in moss, to intense and intricate magical devices that spring out of the walls and spawn crazy monsters or something. But one thing's for sure, every trap is bound to bring
danger. One thing about traps that we can all admit, they're dangerous, and it's pretty much a challenge to identify it, dodge it, or overcome it with a little bit of pain attached to it. But within a dungeon, it's essentially a safety mechanism. It's something that you can see as a challenge to get around, and you're able to get that as a skill challenge, or maybe even use a little bit of like player innovation to just completely subvert the trap. I know you've probably had a player that's like, I think I'm just gonna walk on the ceiling because I have that ability, and now the trap is useless.
flying Aarakocras. Looking at you.
But all in all, overcoming a trap, beating it, or just outright destroying that thing is a rewarding experience, and it's a challenge in and of itself. It's one of those little things that really make your characters feel like, oh yeah, now I'm nice and powerful. Especially when you break out of like a tentacle monster vine trap or something like that.
So Alex mentioned traps being rewarding. That's a really good point, and the first place that we can start for what can make a trap feel not so good for the players. If traps aren't handled correctly by the DM or the players, traps can end up feeling extremely frustrating instead of fun and rewarding. And this is where we'll actually dive into an example from Baldur's Gate. For those of you that have already put in 100+ hours in this game, not that I have,
rookie,
you will know firsthand that there's a few dungeons right at the start of the game even that you're kind of meant to find early on, and there are entire rooms that just explode into flames from traps. And if you aren't already used to using the quick save function, like we will all learn to be, then you have been absolutely obliterated by this specific trap. But the point of the whole thing is, Baldur's Gate is able to give you traps that you can accidentally walk right into and just be literally destroyed by, which isn't very fun, but it's kind of awesome. The thing about Baldur's Gate is you can use that quick save, quick load function and just do it again without actually getting massacred. This unfortunately isn't something you can do in D&D, so you gotta watch and be careful to build traps for your players that they can kind of see and react to before they just get crushed by it.
Yeah, totally agree. Your trap just can't be fireball in the middle of the room with no real thing to like warn them about it, you know? It has to be somewhat fair.
Yeah, it's not going to be fun.
And that's a good point of what you said, it has to be fun. Frustration over fun is going to be a really important point when making a trap. It is essentially replacing a combat encounter, a social encounter, some sort of something, like your players maybe even finding loot. These traps should in a way have a purpose. So if your trap was meant to slow down the party for other mercenaries to arrive and fight them, maybe it's a vine trap, a swamp trap, a glue trap, something like that. But if you're just trying to like chip away a little bit of health and other things like that, or even poison them before the big bad, then maybe it's just little bits of blow darts, or like that's where the pitfall comes in and they actually just crack a leg and there's like 6 or 7 damage, you know? But when it really comes to making it fun, you gotta make sure that they have a chance to avoid it. You can do it with your narration or just whatever the players have to their disposal, like their passive perception. A lot of people don't really like to use passive perception, but if you did, it would be great for traps and other things. One person in your group has an 18 passive perception, let them use it.
Another issue that I found myself running into when presenting traps to my party is the ability to kind of just turn it all into dice rolls and not really narrate, which immediately breaks the immersion of the game. So this would kind of look like there's a spike trap that when you step on a tile, it slams up and hits the players. Basically, that's all you say. And sometimes that happens, especially if you're nervous or thinking about something else. But take the time to describe exactly what's happening narratively. Otherwise, traps really will just slam, hit the players. You take this much damage, you're done. And that's not fun. So be sure to make it more than just dice rolls. Be kind of specific with your narrative. Anytime that I've noticed that it goes a little too mechanics heavy or dice roll heavy and not really narrative, it can quickly bring players out of the immersion of the game. And that's one of the things you definitely never want to do as a DM.
I would say one of the number one immersion breaking things is when you have to look at your friend in like 6 plus 8 plus 9 plus 3.
Yeah. So just one quick and specific example. Instead of saying you see a trap, say something along the lines of you step on the tile and you feel it move under your foot slightly. You hear a faint click. What do you do as you see holes appear on the wall next to you?
That's way more interesting than you just hit a trap.
Exactly.
So another thing about traps that could actually help to elevate them just a little bit is actively involving your players with it. So if holes appear in the wall, don't say, I need a dexterity throw. You're diving out of the way. That's kind of removing player agency and one of the biggest no-nos in D&D. Ask them what they're going to do. Are they going to just straight up punch a hole in that wall right there and see if they, whatever happens? Are they going to cover it and their constitution is able to just push that dart back? Whatever it may be that the trap is, let them be creative. Don't tell them what to do. And I feel like it could be really interesting because if they were going to do what you wanted them to do to dive out of the way, maybe they just barely made the DC even. It could be like a success, but with a catch. Or maybe they just far exceeded it and it's like they disco danced right out of the way of all those spikes, But there could be more than just success or fail.
Yeah, this is a really good point. You'll notice even in a lot of modules, I would even say most modules, if you're reading through this section of the dungeon that has a trap, it will most likely describe what the trap does and then give a specific dexterity save and then the dice count of 15 or whatever else. And realistically, there's good reason for that. It makes it a lot easier for the DM. And if you're dealing with players that aren't too expressive with how they are playing because they're nervous or whatever else, it's easy to say, you see this trap happening, make a dexterity saving throw, and then you have the DC. But the truth is, if you're playing with a group that is more than able to decide for themselves what's going to happen, then you can just present them with, this is what's happening as the trap's going off. You got to act fast. What are you doing? And you let them craft the exact way that they are making their saving throw, which could be a skill check. It could be casting a spell and adding benefits from there. It could be anything other than just a dexterity saving throw.
I can only imagine, as a reaction, one of your saving throws is casting the jump spell on yourself, and now you're 30 feet away. That'd be cool.
Another example of what this could look like. What if it is just a spike trap with spikes flying out of the wall towards the person that triggered the trap? And it's the barbarian. And he doesn't move that fast, but he's huge and hulking, and he's got a shield and everything. So instead of just a dexterity saving throw, what if the barbarian looked at the rest of the party and he's just like, I'm going to take this. And by taking it, I'm going to try to disarm it so no one else can trigger it. So he just stands there with his shield and literally just gets impaled. But the force of him being hit by the spikes literally completely bends and breaks the spikes. Now all the players can go through without issue.
I could imagine it'd be like a javelin or a lance coming at his shield, and he crushes the tip of the lance with that shield. He could do that a couple of times. Or what if it was the monk and then it's straight up just Jackie Chan moves like Bruce Lee out here, snap the tip, snap the tip, snap the tip of all the different spikes that are coming out. That could be a really cool character moment.
Catches one of the javelins, throws it directly back into one of the other holes, disarming the trap,
Exactly.
So that kind of stuff can happen, but it's not going to happen by you just saying, okay, make a dexterity saving throw.
Right. And that's why just basic dex 15 is lame. Make it cool.
But that's going to wrap it up there. Since you loved this video and it was so good and you just can't believe that we don't have more subscribers, you should subscribe and like the video, share it however you want to. Also, if you want to rep our awesome new merch, check these puppies out. We just got some of these put together new and fresh. You can get them. We'll have a link down in the description below. But yeah, thanks again.
Make sure to like, comment, or subscribe if you like those videos. Leave a comment for any suggestions for new ones too. But we will see you again. Bye, everybody.
See ya.